our children and our families deserve real answers because the math ain't mathing, if you ask me. You talk about all of the partnerships she's bought into the district, all of the investment with Children's Hospital in the city of New Orleans and Thrive Kids mental health resources. So somebody has to make it make sense. Why is she stepping down?
Well, Doc, you've been around it long enough. I've been around it long enough, and we all have been around long enough that usually, whenever there's a situation when somebody, and I've had a couple of different positions, whenever you've had somebody who seems to be doing a good job, and then you have a situation whereby this person out of nowhere resigned, there's a whole lot more to that story. What's so
Well, we need
unfortunate,
to know the whole lot
well, and
more.
that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
There's what's unfortunate is that one, oftentimes that story isn't made public on a regular basis and on a consistent basis. Maybe she decides to not say exactly what went on. Maybe there's some folks who are close to her who know what's going on, and at some point in time, that's going to be made public. Maybe the individuals who are on the school board, for whatever reason, choose not to. I don't know the answer to that question as of right now. I think very few people probably do, but someone knows, and at some point in time, hopefully that'll be made public.
The article goes on to say during her tenure, the OPSB approved NOLA Public Schools Evolve, a 5-year strategic plan of action, giving the district a roadmap for future success. Also, the 5-year portfolio plan will help guide decisions regarding the district's needs through the lens of quality, quantity, choice, and variety. Dr. Williams was instrumental in successfully launching a 20-year millage renewal valued at over $420 million to support long-term infrastructure funding, ensuring scholars have innovative and safe learning spaces. So the question still remains. The number here is 504-582-9422. Why did the superintendent resign? We have a call on line one. Good morning, Reverend Wallace. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good
Good
morning,
morning.
good morning. And I see Wesley Bishop is trying to put a nice face on a sad situation. One, she's a damn failure, a total damn failure. And then she's going to have the gall to set a number 2 person up that she brought here to put on the school board. If the school board elect that selection she making, it's just as stupid as her. She ain't did nothing for the school system, but put on a bunch of bull jive and stuff and make us think so. But if you keep going the way you're going, in 5 years or 10 years, you won't have public schooling. The school board needs to dig down deep and get themselves together, because it's a sad thing that these kids are going through the same thing over and over. I mean, you're giving me ice cream and ice cream milk, and that's all they're giving us is ice cream and it's milk. It ain't nothing serious about what they're doing for the system and the school board, public schooling in New Orleans. It's a sad thing. And for our leaders to sit back and let this train keep going down the track the way it is, it's sad. Dr. White, she was a failure to the highest degree. And for her to sit there and make it seem like there's not $36 million and you don't know nothing about that, you don't need that job. And anybody she recommend, I vote against it.
Thank you, Reverend Wallace. We appreciate your commentary. Listen, here's the thing. I don't push back against anybody's perspective. The things that I'm reading are coming directly from the article, which is they pull quotes from members of the Orleans Parish School Board. So all of these initiatives and her successes came directly from her bosses, which is the board. That's who employ her. So this is what they say she's done for the district. And my question would be, if she's done all of these things for the district, per the district, per her bosses, then why is there a sudden resignation? Because it literally came out of nowhere, right? And so it's saying that, and listen, I always have an issue with the growth score ideals. I'm so tired of hearing that our kids are growing. I'm ready to hear that they're proficient in something. So I take that growth measurement with a grain of salt, whatever the case may be. But if her bosses are saying that she's done all of these remarkable things in 2.5 years of being here, then why is there a sudden resignation? And then why do you put her number 2, the person she brought here, to be the interim? So if you had an issue with her leadership, is that not just her leadership 2.0? I'm I'm asking questions.
And Reverend Wallace, just to kind of talk just a little bit about that particular piece, all I was simply saying was that it doesn't seem to add up. When Dr. Wyatt was speaking and talking about the different pieces that the school board is saying, her board is talking about she's on this, that, and the other. If you have someone and you honestly feel they've done a good job based upon not just their resume, but based upon what you see that she's done, why not fight to try and keep that person? The one thing that everyone in the city of New Orleans knows is that there's some things that are going on in our educational system, and we need to improve that quick, fast, and in a hurry, and it should have been done a long time ago. So if you've identified someone, I mean, it's not easy to find a school superintendent. When there was a search and she was chosen from Selma, Alabama, they said her track record was one that made them believe that she could do a good job in there. Based upon what this article is saying is that she has, in fact, done a good job. So if you're suggesting that she hasn't done a good job, and I don't know if anybody whose opinion would matter more than the people who brought her here, why not fight to try and keep her? And as Dr. Wyatt said just a second ago, and if you didn't decide to either accept her resignation as she has to go, you pick her number 2 person, which someone would suggest that one is not so much an indictment. If she picked the person, if we can't have her, the best possibility is to have her number 2 person. Well, if that's the case, if you want number 2 now, why not try to keep number 1? So something just don't seem to add up. And I was saying that we don't necessarily have the information right now. I think it will, in fact, come out one way or the other as we take a look at it. But that's all I was trying to talk about, Dr.
Well, here's my stance on Reverend Wallace's comments.
Mm-hmm.
There is something in the water ain't clean when you have the community saying something staunchly different than what her bosses are saying.
I agree.
So that's why I said a meth ain't methin', because if the community is saying this, and he's very passionate about his stance on it, he says she's done absolutely nothing, and then her bosses can get in the article and name tons of things that she's apparently done in the 2.5 years, then where is the truth? Somewhere in the middle lies the truth.
That's what I said.
And our kids deserve accountability and transparency, and that's all we've ever asked for over the last 20 years. You can dogpile on the school board pre-Katrina and say and point out all of the negativity, specific negativity, but you can't tell us anything specific to what is going on in this system. And that's where the convolution comes from. There's no way that the public can have such a vast difference of opinion in terms of outcomes. And then the board that hired her, they have all these glowing things to say, but then she's suddenly resigning in the middle of a tenure. Something about this is not adding up.
That's what I just said.
And the conversation on social media has been about indicting her for supporting the direct run school, which is Leah Chase. There may be some teeth to that if because the math isn't adding up. There may be some teeth to that. Are you punishing her because she had the audacity to support a direct run school? Or are you scapegoating her for this miscalculation of monies because she couldn't miscalculate that by herself? Let's just be honest here. That is not her entire bag to carry. And we're going to be fair here. If we're going to hold people accountable, and accountability comes fairness. That is not her bag to carry on her own. As you know, she is employed by the board. So if there's a miscalculation of funding, she cannot hold that water alone. That is the indictment of the Orleans Parish School Board in its entirety, the superintendent included. So somebody has to explain to the public and the parents and the students of this community, why are we in the middle of a tenure of a superintendent and she's abruptly leaving, and then you have glowing reviews for her in the media? So if I'm a parent reading this, my question would be, then why is she leaving? If all of these things are happening, then why is she going? And then if I hear a commentary such as Reverend Wallace's, I'm like, well, what you're writing in the paper, is it true? Because how can a community leader, how can someone so closely to the issues of the city have such a staunch difference of opinion in terms of what her product has been? A lot of folk call her a tourist. A lot of people say she's paying a lot of money to be a tourist. That's probably what it looks like to people on the outside looking in.
What does that mean when you say that?
Just going around to schools, having meetings, shaking hands, kissing babies. You understand what a tourist is. You visited places, right?
No, I didn't,
that's what they're calling her. That's not my terminology. That's what people are saying about her. Because I'm standing on the side of, if she's doing all of these glowing things, then the school board that hired her has to give us some insight as to then why are you accepting a resignation from her? Okay. Is this a resignation or is this a termination? Because something in the water is not clean. If you're saying she brought in all of these millions of dollars in investments, she created all of these partnerships, she pushed the district forward in terms of growth scores, mastery levels have grown, then tell me, why is she going?
My suggestion would be that it's probably somewhere in between. We talk about a resignation or a termination, and that's just based upon what I have heard. It did not surprise me when we had the situation about a couple of weeks ago where you saw the consistent conversation. This was right around the school board elections and when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, when they brought in, I think Bureau of Government Research brought in this individual and said that it was a school board's problem when they decided to allow one school to be direct run. That did not seem to make any sense whatsoever. We spent a lot of time talking about that. This does not seem to make any sense. And so what I'm trying to figure out now, and what the viewing audience, the listening audience, I'm sure will come in and talk a little bit about that, is that where is the truth in this entire piece? You have one opinion, you have another opinion, but there's some real truth somewhere in between, and I think that's going to be discussed and hopefully be revealed sometime soon.
If you want to get in on this conversation, the number here is 504-582-9422. We have some callers. Please hold for the other side of the break. We will have more conversations right here on WBOK about the sudden and abrupt resignation of the New Orleans Public School Superintendent, Dr. Avis Williams. This is WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
NOLA Public Schools' main round enrollment for kindergarten through 12th grade is now open. With 73 schools available through the NOLA Public Schools Common Application Process, or NCAP, finding the right school fit for your family is easier than ever. List up to 12 choices to maximize your chances and apply by January 24th. We're all in, and we hope you are too. Apply today at enrollnolaps.com. That's enrollnolaps.com.
WBOK and LCMC Health are proud to present the Keeping You Well Cafe, 60 minutes of LCMC Health, where doctors speak directly to the people of New Orleans. LCMC Health is committed to improving the quality of healthcare in the New Orleans area, the Gulf South, and beyond. The Keeping You Well Cafe is another way for LCMC Health to engage with the community. Over the next few months, LCMC Health will join WBOK and local businesses to answer your health and wellness questions. Through this partnership, LCMC Health will provide resources to the community, including subject matter experts from the hospitals that will share expertise on health concerns and wellness practices to help you live your best life. Tune in to WBOK during the last hour of the reality check, or catch us at lcmchealth.org and follow us on social media.
I'm Howard Robertson, creator and CEO of the Play Ode mobile app. Somebody said it takes a village, and Black Radio is the village voice of the Black community. Get in on Play Ode. Entertained, inspired, informed, and engaged. Hear your music on some of America's best radio stations, podcasts, news and info, wherever you go. For Black radio like it was meant to be, download PLAYODE.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana companies through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about what the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation does, please visit www.jazzandheritage.org.
Hello, I'm Gary Clark. Please tune in to Dr. Clark 101, The Living Classroom, which is broadcasted weekly every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. on WBOK 1230 a.m. on your dial. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 a.m.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 a.m.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. We are in deep conversation about the sudden and abrupt resignation of the New Orleans Public School Superintendent, Dr. Avis Williams, and we're going to go straight to the phone lines. Line one. Welcome to the Good Morning Show, Ms.
Good
Alicia.
morning. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm in agreement with Reverend Wallace, in total agreement with him. I was never a fan. I'm also one of the people who said she was a $300,000 a year tourist. She went on a field trip every day to the schools. She had no role. She had nothing to do. So with this debacle, with the money that they're in arrears for, she should have been on top of that because she had nothing else to do. We got the Leah Chase School. Yeah, she's probably going to be punished for that. But she didn't even have anything to do with Leah Chase because they have a CEO at Leah Chase. They have a principal at Leah Chase. So that's another school structure in itself. What was her role in that? So in my opinion, she had plenty of time to get the numbers right. But what also makes me disgusted, you have Caroline Roma Shirley putting her 2 cents in when she has absolutely nothing to do with, she should have absolutely nothing to do with our school system. She makes money off the back of these charter schools. She's getting more power than the superintendent, and that needs to stop. And when you talk about our children are failing, our black children are failing. Our children can't read. Our children can't do cursive. And they're talking about, oh, well, they're doing better because one child went from an F to a D. That's better? No. This whole system needs to be turned around. That's why the school board elections were important. And if we continue this, our children will continue to be a pipeline of prison system. This needs to stop. I don't feel sorry because she didn't do her job, in my opinion, for the parents and for the community. She had absolutely nothing to do all day long but go to school, call our children a scholar when they're failing our children. So I'm with you, Reverend Wallace. I'm with you 100%. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Miss Alicia.
Thank you, Alicia.
Line 2, Jonathan, welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning, Dr. Wyatt. How are you all doing?
I'm great.
Good. Once again, I'm an educator in this city. Been doing it almost 30 years now. And actually, I left Orleans Parish because of the shell games that's continuously played. But of course, you understand what I say when we as employees of that system that's corrupt and doing things illegitimately, we're considered to be disgruntled. I will say this, though. How many times do we have to bring somebody in, sign them to a big contract, and they're making a ton of money from someplace else as if there's nobody here that's qualified to do a job, and then it's always about the money. It's always an issue about the money. You know, I'm fed up because our kids are the ones that's ultimately being hurt, okay? And until parents and until the citizens of New Orleans stand up and say, no more, we're not taking this anymore, and walk out on that school system, there's nothing going to be done. It's going to be the same thing over and over again. I wish the state would take it over. I wish they would take it over, okay? Because it's not the way it's going, and this charter thing has been a shell game from day one. Anybody that's been around will tell you it's all about the money. The number of people that they brought in, it's all about the big contracts. It's all about signing the book deals with your friends and people all around the country. And like you said, somebody said it earlier, going around shaking hands, kissing babies, and nothing is moving the needle. So, you know, I don't know whose idea it was to bring her here in the first place, but it's a shell game that's continuously being played on the citizens of New Orleans, unfortunately. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Jonathan. Listen, to the caller's points, we'll talk about Jonathan's points first, and then we'll talk about Miss Alicia's stance. Everything that you're hearing me say comes directly from the news outlets who interviewed the board members and interviewed Caroline Romer, who is she works for the Charter School Association. She's quoted as saying that Dr. Williams didn't respect the CEOs or CMOs, and she didn't really seem to have a good working relationship with them. She's even quoted as saying that the core function of the district is to do the math. So she's as puzzled as we are about where this money, you over project or how you missed the mark so gravely. Because initially they were saying 20 million, and then it ballooned as much as 36 million. But my question would still remain, right? If the public is having such a staunch reaction to this, and they're on the side of she's done nothing. She all of the things we heard that the commenters said, then how is the school board saying all of these glowing things, but she's resigning? So somewhere in between, it's just not adding up for me. And again, if I don't have confidence in your leadership, then why would I substitute your leadership for your surrogate? That doesn't make sense to me. But that's just me saying that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And the state law says the school board has, I believe, 6 months. She can, Dr. Fatima Fulmore can serve as much as 6 months before they have to name a permanent superintendent. And then the question goes to, are we going to go to another national search and spend another $1 million to go and find a superintendent? What are we going to do? Because the last time when they did this, they went all across the city saying that they were doing listening sessions. And I've seen comments saying you did all of that listening and nobody heard what the people were saying.
Okay.
So what are we going to do? Because I do know she had 1.5 years on her contract. They had to pay her for that.
Wow.
So on top of having to pay her for the duration of her contract, now we're going to pay her surrogate additional monies, maybe, to cover for her. And then we're going to go and pay more money to go and look. And this is all in the wake of a $36 million miscalculation of per pupil funding. This is a crisis. And I, for one, am sick of our children having to live through crises. That's just my opinion. What do you say?
Well, Doc, I think many of the questions that are being raised, not just by you, not just by me, not just by the individual calling in, are legitimate questions. What's so unfortunate is that as of right now, we just don't have the answers. We have an idea of what transpired based upon what we've seen happen both with this board and boards everywhere, quite honestly. We get a sense of what's going on and what's really behind the 8 ball. It seems to me, and as I said a second ago, somewhere between the termination and the resignation. Oftentimes I have seen is that when someone or some entity is dissatisfied with someone and want to get rid of them, they give them the opportunity to leave before they actually have to fire them. I would suggest that somewhere in this conversation that probably happened. I don't know that for certain. That's the thought that I actually have, what I've seen. And so when I say that, I think much of this is actually going to come out because it's hard to keep this kind of stuff undercover. And I think oftentimes what's done in the dark is, in fact, going to come to light. So I think in the next few days, you'll get a chance to see what's transpired and people will opine about what their thoughts are and what really happened in this situation.
I just want to know where are the children being factored into this? I think, we get lost in talking about adult errors and all of this change with adults, but nobody's factoring into how this is going to play on the psyche of children. This is ridiculous, in my opinion. We just literally watched this go on in Baton Rouge, and Baton Rouge seems to go through this often, and it's so sad. And then now New Orleans, and we see it out in the river parishes, and it's always where there's a high demographic of Black children where we can't seem to find stability and consistency in our educators or in our school leaders. And it's just it's awful to me to think about what this is going to do for children. And in my opinion, I do not disagree with this idea that if your only job is to be stewards of the money, how can we be so wrong about the money? Because our school board isn't running schools. The only school that they have, they just got it.
Yeah.
So if your only job is to be stewards of the money, how did we get it so wrong? That is not a miscalculation. $36 million, you got to try hard to miscalculate that.
That's a lot of money.
So for me, we have to, and to Reverend Wallace's point and all of the callers' points, and even the folk in the comments, where are our leaders on this? Where are the people who are in positions to have an authoritative stance on what is happening in our school system and to our children? Because the losers are the kids and the communities of people who believed in the district when they say this was our best choice. She was the best choice. We believe that. And here we are 2.5 years later, and now we're getting ready to go
All
back
over
into the same process when you told us that she was head and shoulders the best person to fill the seat. Where are our leaders? Where are the people with authoritative opinions and voices and stances in terms of what is happening in our school system. Because in my opinion, so goes the school system, so goes the city. That's how I feel. When you have a broken school system, the crime rate will rise, and when the crime rate rises, that's when you're going to see degradation all over the community. But nobody believes in a stable school system. Apparently, we don't believe that that's the key to all of the answers we're looking for. I guess nobody believes it because we keep letting people play school on our kids, and nobody's actually standing up for them. Something has to be done here, and I'm floored that we are allowing it, and we are allowing people to puppet master our school system. We are allowing people to do their will on our children. We're allowing them to buy seats on our school board. We're allowing them to place people in positions of authority all over this city, and nobody's doing anything about it. And yet we're supposed to be a black city with real black leadership. Somebody lying. Because what's the problem here? Why are our children suffering under black leadership? Why?
I would like to see a situation whereby, as we may mention, we're in the middle of school board elections right now. We only have one that's actually left. But I would love to see a situation whereby we can talk to not just current members of the school board, but prospective members of the school board who are still in this election that's actually going on, to find out exactly what's going on. If we're talking about wanting to make sure that particularly the school board is looking to see exactly what's going on, what's the real deal behind what actually happened, and try and get that done. When I think back about the time when I was actually going to school, and I think back all of the school board leaders and the school board superintendents that we actually have, we have a very different system than we actually had then. So now if we talk about the individual who was in fact the school superintendent, not really having much to do and not being on a day-to-day accountable for what's actually going on. And if we're speaking of this entire charter system other than the one Leah Chase School, and that individual and that board being responsible for the day-to-day operations of the particular schools, I think those individuals need to be the ones that are responsible, because they are responsible for the day-to-day operations of the school.
Well, one of the comments in the chat says, if she resigned, why do the taxpayers have to pay the remainder of her contract? Did she break the contract, or was she really fired? Those are the type of questions we need answers to. And I don't know where Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie is at 7:36 a.m., but if you are in earshot of my voice, the number here is 504-582-9422, because that is a voice that I trust. Mm-hmm. He's a voice that I trust. I, as a person who deeply cares about this community and these children, I want answers, and something about this does not smell right to me. So if she resigned, why are we on the hook for the remainder of her salary? That is the question being posed in the chat.
Well, let me try to address. And as a trained attorney, I'm assuming that when she either applied for the job or they went and actually found her, what typically happens is that she has a lawyer, the school board has a lawyer, and they sit and negotiate what the contract is. Somewhere in the language of that contract is probably a buyout clause, that if she has a contract, let's say for 4 years, and if she steps down, they ask her to step down, before that period ends, she is then owed a certain amount of money.
If she resigns?
Whatever the language says. Whatever the language of that contract says.
That's the question we're asking. Because if you voluntarily part ways from your job, then why is your job on the hook to buy you out? If they're forcing you out, then I can understand a severance or a buyout clause. But I would want to know that, because that's additional monies that we apparently don't have. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to be additional monies to go on this expensive search to replace her. So something about this, we need clarity. I don't deny
anything that you're saying, but the question that was raised was a legal question. And and my suggestion to that would simply be that, one, if the language of her contract says that if she leaves, if she's fired, whatever the language actually says, just because
I did not misunderstand that. I heard what you said. So that's what I'm saying. I want to know, though. I want to know what that is, because the language of the contract can say what the language of the contract says. But if you're saying she resigned, and if you're saying all of these wonderful things about her, then my initial question still stands. Then why is she leaving? Because I was personally told that she's not happy with the resignation. I was personally told that. Okay. So if she's not happy with the resignation, that means she didn't voluntarily resign. Okay. So something in the water is convoluted and is muddy. But we can talk about the resignation of Superintendent Avis Williams all day, but I want to pivot and talk about Dr. Martin Luther King High School out in the 9th Ward. There was a meeting held yesterday in the school's auditorium. It was a well-attended meeting. There were parents and community folk in the meeting, and they were talking about ways. And I was late to the meeting because I was in hour traffic getting over there. 5 o'clock traffic in New Orleans has turned into something. But when I did get there, I got there in time for the question and answer portion of the meeting. But what I will say is, the school is in crisis, and there needs to be some real intervention put in place so that school can stay in that community and survive in that community. The children deserve it. I really don't have any dog in the fight when it comes to the adults, but the children deserve to have a school in their neighborhood, in their community, and that is why I showed up at the meeting. I do know simultaneously they were having a meeting at the school board on the West Bank to deal with the sudden and abrupt resignation of Dr. Avis Williams and to name an interim, which they in turn named Dr. Fatima Fulmore, which is Dr. Avis Williams number 2, to fill that position while they search for a superintendent. But when it comes to Martin Luther King and its survival, there has to be some serious interventions put in place so that the kids can have a building and the kids can have access to a school. That building is gorgeous. That is a beautiful facility over there. And that is my hope for the school. And I'm going to say it again. I don't have a dog in the fight when it comes to where the adults are going to go. But what I do know is those children deserve that building. Those children deserve to have a school in their community, and the numbers need to go up. We constantly keep talking about the right size in the district. That's their new term, because they're claiming the enrollments or the number of children isn't such that they could sustain all of these schools being open. And if the leaders of Martin Luther King can hear what I'm about to say, I believe that that's going to be the grounds that they decide to take the school, because they're going to use this whole idea of right size in the district. They're going to use this idea of this budget miscalculation, and they're going to use the low enrollment over there at Martin Luther King to support their justifications for wanting to close it. But we do know closure don't mean closure here in New Orleans. Closure just mean they're going to spin the block and give it to somebody else. And it would be awful if that building that bears the name of a civil rights icon goes to anybody but Black folk in terms of leading Black children. But that's just my take on it. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know that Martin Luther King is severely under-enrolled. I think that's going to be the grounds for which they revocate.
I think that I've been following that situation for several months in my other capacity to see exactly what's going on. I'm from the lower 9th Ward. I can throw a rock from the house I grew up in and hit Martin Luther King. But part of the issue that I think that's actually going on isn't just about, I guess, Martin Luther King at that particular site. It's the entire Martin Luther King network with both the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. And I think that's extremely important. Dr. Dolores Hicks was a longtime leader of that school. They have a team that's in place that's working on that. And what's most importantly, I think, is to make sure that in that area, as you said a second ago, that there needs to be quality school at that particular site to service the folks in the lower 9th Ward. There are several things that I've heard from individuals who are there that would help this situation move forward. Number one, we need to make sure that we put the kind of resources that are necessary to make that school be extremely successful. I think the individuals who work there on a regular basis have a heart of gold. I've seen what they've done with those children. We spend a lot of time with those particular kids. So this whole idea of potentially looking at the school and trying to close the school, that's the last thing we're trying to talk about. We need to make sure that we get that entire entity taken care of, give it the resources that it actually needs, and get the leadership, not just on the school, but in the community, because there's a great deal of individuals. I'm thinking about Reverend Willie Calhoun, who goes out of his way to make sure that that's happening. And not just that, but to pull in individuals in that area to give the school all that it needs. Many of the pastors in that area. I was there 3 weeks ago for a program that they actually had, who were willing and able to put that entire piece together. So I think everybody needs to come together, put our feet together, and try and work forward.
Well, the resource that they need, and I'm going to say it again, is children. You can have all of the The,
They need more than that.
The
They need more than that.
resources, they have wonderful services that they're offering. They don't have children to offer it to. And when it all comes down to it, because see, this right here is my lane. They need children. You need bodies so that you can get MFP dollars, so that you can have a general fund. You can't have a building that houses 800 and you only have less than 200 people in it.
Correct.
That's the problem. All of the services that they're offering are wonderful. Who are they going to offer it to if there are not enough bodies in the seat? You could bring every pastor in the city in there. You could offer every program you want in there. You could have a pool in there, and you could offer swimming. But if you don't have children to get in the water, the school is not going to sustain itself.
Gotcha.
So I'm not understanding why Martin Luther King's elementary school, middle school, whatever that school is that's next door, has all of those children, but it's not a feeder school to their high school. That's the gap that they need to plug, because what I can tell you is that's the easiest way to get bodies in the seat. Let your baby school be the feeder for your big child school. And we watch it happen all over this city with other schools. Why can't it happen for Martin Luther King? We need babies and bodies in that building so that school could sustain itself. They are doing wonderful things, but they're doing wonderful things for a very small population of children, and that is the issue. We need to figure out a way to get kids in the Ninth Ward in that area going to that school. That is the problem. And part of their problem is trying to circumvent One App, because One App is sending their children all different places when there's a school next door for them to go to. The elementary kids need to choose Martin Luther King number one on their One App, because if you choose them number one and there's a seat, then the algorithm says that that's where they should go. Reverend Calhoun, hold on for me on the other side of the break, because I absolutely want to converse with you. And if you want to talk on this issue, the number here is 504-582-9422. This is WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
The cooler weather is here. Jackets are needed today as temperatures for the first half of the day are in the 50s and 60s. We'll see mostly sunny skies with afternoon highs near seasonal and the low 70s. Another cool night is ahead. North Shore lows in the 40s, South Shore lows in the 50s. Expect a dry weekend with highs in the mid to upper 70s. Rain arrives next week. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Tired of the impersonal, one-size-fit-all style of banking? You deserve a bank that delivers exceptional service and personalized attention to your needs. That's the Home Bank Standard. Since 1908, Home Bank has been a trusted financial partner for businesses and families because we go the extra mile to help you reach your goals. See for yourself why Home Bank is good for business, good for life. Stop by any New Orleans area location or find out more at home24bank.com. Home Bank, member FDIC.
The National World War II Museum, located in the Warehouse District of New Orleans. The National World War II Museum tells the story of America's experience in the war that changed the world, why it was fought, how it was won, and what it means today. Visit them online at www.nationalww2museum.org for time tickets and safety information.
Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060.
Join Inspire NOLA Charter Schools, Freddie King, Hancock Whitney, Six War Steppers, and more for 2 NOLA Love Drive-Thru Turkey and Ham giveaways. On Tuesday, November 26th, the first giveaway begins at 9 a.m. in Algiers at Alice Hart Charter School, and the second giveaway begins at 2 p.m. in historic Treme at the Mahalia Jackson Theater. Receive a free turkey or ham and food items while supplies last. We'll see you there. Learn more at inspirenolaschools.org.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 1230 AM.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. In studio this morning with me
Senator
is
Wesley Bishop.
And behind the glass holding us all together, super producer Nyron Sanders. We're going to go straight to the phone line because the whole night world want to have this conversation. Good morning, Reverend Calhoun. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
Good morning, Reverend.
When we look at enrollment, I think we have to speak to who controls enrollment. It used to be called the One App, now it's called Enroll NOLA. They don't, when they have that privilege to determine who comes to the school, and they stop children from coming to the school, that's a problem. When you made the comment the other day about that you did not follow the procedure and went enroll your kid in the school you wanted him to be in.
I did.
That's something that every parent needs to know how to do. Because once you go to One NOLA, go to Enroll NOLA, and NOLA says that kid can't go to that school or they don't want the kid, and there's evidence to show that. The other piece is the elementary school. The 8th graders come out of King that come out of the elementary to go over to the high school does happen. There's an integration between the elementary school band and the high school band. So there are kids that's coming out of the elementary going into the senior high school. However, you only have so many kids in the 8th grade that can go from the elementary to the high school. It's never going to be enough to elevate the enrollment with just trying to get kids out of elementary. Now, here's the real deal. The Orleans Parish School Board says there are 400 kids that's eligible to go to school at King. Of that 400, we only have 14%. So now, where's the disconnect?
Right.
How is it that, and we have, again, there's evidence that says that when parents have went and put King as their first choice, they don't get it. There's evidence to show that they sent 100 kids over to Carver. Well, if Carver already has all this high enrollment, why are you not sending kids over to King? And unless we can sit down and actually have that conversation, I believe, with Enroll NOLA to find out what is the problem of kids not being sent to King, I don't think we can solve the enrollment problem.
I absolutely agree with you.
And they don't control enrollment.
Thank you, Reverend Calhoun. I absolutely agree with you, and I'm going to tell you something else. When I was the CEO principal of Harney, they did my school the same exact thing. I do know that Enroll NOLA, which was One App at the time, have the power to turn off your enrollment. They will funnel people who actually put your school as number one. They will funnel them elsewhere. I know that happens, but that directive has to come from the Orleans Parish School Board to turn off your enrollment. That absolutely happens because the algorithm says if I put Martin Luther King as my number one and Martin Luther King has a seat for if a 9th grader puts Martin Luther King as their number one and Martin Luther King has a 9th grade seat, that child is supposed to be matched with that school. So somebody is manually manipulating it. If children are choosing King and King has open seats, then something in the water ain't clean. And that is what I'm telling you here. There's no way you can have all of those seats and children are choosing King and not being placed in King. We're going to go to line 2, Reverend Ricasna. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning, my sister and brother.
Good morning.
Enjoying the show, and of course, your guests are most knowledgeable. Let me say this first. We want to thank you all for coming out to the town hall meeting on last night. Sister Wyatt, your comments were well received, and we appreciate that. And Reverend Calhoun pretty much summed it up. It's all about manipulating the system. We're in the situation we're in not because of our fault, but because of what OPSB or whatever they call them now has done to the school. It reminds me of an old quote a co-worker of mine said. He said, you cut a man's foot off and then you criticize the way he walks. And that's just what they are doing to Dr. Martin Luther King. But the fight ain't over yet, and so many people give up so quick. The last word has not been spoken. And let me say this. When you look at that school board, when you look at the people that hold the seat, the people that's calling the shots over the superintendent, whoever that might be, over all these charters or whatever the case might be, they're manipulating it so that the only black-run charter in this city is being cast out because they want control of our children. Because for them, the children are the money. But for us, the children are our future. We continue to work hard here at King to make sure our kids that we have get the best services we could provide. There's no other charter that has the heart for the children like we have here at Dr. Martin Luther King Charter School. So again, I thank y'all, I commend y'all, and continue to fight the good fight.
Thank you, Reverend. We
See
appreciate
you at the
you.
round table.
Thank you, Reverend.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with both Reverend Calhoun and Reverend Wallace. And I did show up at the meeting, and I did openly support the survival of that school, as I've done on this station every time that I talk about Martin Luther King High School. And no, I am not a resident of the Ninth Ward, because, you know, one of the comments was you need people from your community. Well, New Orleans is my whole community. And the Ninth Ward is in New Orleans. And so it's my whole community. And that's our issue right there. We need to care about the entire city and all of its children. And as I said at the meeting, when they attacked the first school and try to close it, if we as a community would have come together as a united front and stood against the closure of William J. Fisher, we wouldn't be at Martin Luther King. If we stood against the closure of Nelson, we wouldn't be at Martin Luther King. There were so many opportunities for us to rally around schools that house predominantly black children, and we allowed them to do away with our schools, just like they did away with Harney. And they didn't even do away with Harney for anything other than board malfeasance. And all you had to do was reconfigure my board. You didn't have to take my school, because my school had the numbers that they needed to have. You closed off my enrollment, and people were still trying to put their children in my school because I was their leader. You had a leader that cared about children, and you had a staff of teachers who loved what they were doing, and they took the school anyway. So that's telling you that there's no recipe for closure. They close it based on whatever they want to decide is the flavor of the day to close it. But what I will tell you is, I want there to be a resurgence of children in the Martin Luther King building, because that is how you save the school. All the people have to come out in numbers and say, this is the school I want my child to go to. And one app and nobody else could be able to deter you from putting your child at that school if that is where you want your child to go. That is what the law says. It says choice. And that is what I did when I sent my son to school. I didn't participate in one app. The law says choice, and I chose the school, and that's where he went. And that's what I did. And there's no recipe for it. There's no strategy for it. I read the law, and they said that parents should have the option of choosing their school so they don't have to be relegated to a failing school in their neighborhood. That is what they said. So I said, okay, I don't want my child to go to Boudreaux, which was the school closest to my neighborhood. I live in Jefferson Parish, right? Let's be very clear about that. But this was what I did. I chose to send my son to Alice Hart. That's what I did. Okay. And my son grandfathered into Alice Hart because he was pre-One App. He was the year before this whole One App thing came into play. So he didn't have to do One App at the elementary level. But by the time he was ready to go to high school, One App was in play. I still didn't do One App. I chose the school. And at first, my son wanted to go to Warren Easton. Nobody knows that. Okay. He wanted to go to Warren Easton. And then Carr built the big building. And I'm an alum of Carr, so I was excited when he said, okay, Mama, they have the new building. That's where I want to go. And that's where he went. I didn't participate in that because you waved the banner of choice, and I'm going to use your law that says I can choose. I don't want my baby to go to a failing school in my neighborhood, so that's what I did. That's what all parents should do. If you want your child at MLK, then that's the school you choose. Why are you participating in a system to choose 12 options when you only need one?
Gotcha.
You got me?
Makes sense.
You sure?
I think I do. Listen, I do.
This conversation can go on for days because the children are most important to me. I'm going to take a call on line 2. Eric Jones, welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Thank you, Dr. White. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Wesley Bishop. I echo everything everyone has said as relates to what's happening in terms of the distribution with One App and Knives and Road NOLA. They still haven't gotten it correctly in terms of how we're going to figure out what that looked like. And I definitely agree with the parent that called in or whoever was speaking as relates to where I put my child. I think it was you, Dr. White. I'm not sure.
It was.
Because I was trying to hurry up and get on. But you're absolutely right. When we talk about choice, we have to use the same policy that they're trying to distribute in terms of what we can do to put our kids in places. But when you look at the demographic and the numbers of elementary, middle versus high schools in those areas, like Reverend Calhoun said, you only have two actually high schools in the ninth ward, right? But we also have to think about the real estate. Look at what the elephant in the room is: real estate, prime real estate. These schools. That school is a brand new, most recently a brand new school, right?
Yes.
And we're moving these. We're not closing schools. We're just giving it to these operators. And I think we need to take a look at what that can look like in an equitable a process or a structure. The district doesn't have, in my opinion, a real reliable structure in terms of opening and closing schools. And is that what we want? Opening and closing schools. The district is an authorizer with very little participation. They need a structure in place. They need a system in place. We need what we are doing right now, hold them accountable. Like you say, I'm not moving my child. I choose where my child go. But we're using this thing about this is a failing school, so you can't go there. Or this is a school that I think we don't have enough seats. When we're distributing these kids all over the city, it's not fair. It's not fair. We need to find a better process other than closing schools. We need to survive that school. We need to help that school. We need to provide those resources if they need those resources. And we need to look at other things that's happening inside of that school other than a test that the state gives at the end of the year. We have to do something better than that. And you also made a comment, Dr. Wyatt, as it relates to Wesley Bishop, I think, as it relates to people buying these seats or putting people in these seats that because they want control. It's about our children. It's about our families and our community. And so we need to do better than that. And so hopefully in the next month, December 7th, that change, part of that change, the beginning of that change will take place. We need to put advocacy or people representation that's going to do what's right by children, not right by special interest groups.
Thank you, Eric Jones. We appreciate you, Doc. Have a good one. Listen, we have to go to break, but the commentary was absolutely on point. We have to do what is best for children at the end of the day, and we have to make certain that Martin Luther King High School understands that the entire city is behind it. We support it. We want it to survive, and if you want it to survive, you need to show up at the school board meeting and let your voices be heard. I think that meeting is December 10th. Reverend Calhoun can give us some clarification around that, but I believe it's December 10th at the school board building. So please use your voice and stand up and support the survival of that school, if nothing else, for the children of that community. It doesn't have to be your community and your children, but we need that school and that community for those children. So stay with us. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk to our partners at Liberty Bank right after the break. This is WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
WBOK 1230 AM New Orleans. Home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy believes Matt Gaetz won't be confirmed as Attorney General despite President-elect Trump's nomination. McCarthy praised Trump's other picks, but suggested Gaetz' nomination is a distraction. President-elect Trump is nominating 3 of his criminal defense attorneys for positions in the Department of Justice: Todd Blanche as Deputy Attorney General, Emil Bove as Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General, and Dean John Sauer as Solicitor General. They would serve under Attorney General nominee Matt Gaetz pending Senate confirmation. Military suicide rates continued to rise in 2023, following a decade-long trend. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin emphasized the urgent need for enhanced suicide prevention efforts. And crews are preparing the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree for its big debut next month. The 74-foot Norway spruce has been undergoing the decorating process since it arrived. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
New Schools for New Orleans, along with Allstate Sugar Bowl and Entergy New Orleans, would like to send a huge congratulations to our class of 2024 New Orleans Excellence in Teaching Award honorees. This year, we had 90 Teachers of the Year from each public school in New Orleans. Each of them was recognized at our annual gala, where we had over 350 attendees. We're excited to also share that each honoree is receiving a $1,000 classroom grant. Thank you for everything you do, teachers.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 1230 AM.
Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. In studio with me is none other than
Senator Wesley Bishop.
And behind the glass, holding us all together, is super producer Nyron Sanders. We had a very spirited conversation about the abrupt and sudden resignation of Superintendent Avis Williams, and we followed that conversation with the perspective or the impending or what they're trying to do with Martin Luther King High School out there in the 9th Ward. We're not going to continue to claim closure. We want to make certain that school survives, and we support it. So Reverend Calhoun, Reverend Rick Hasner, I do, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt, fully support the survival of that school. And if you do, please get behind those leaders in that community and push for the survival of that school. But right now, we're going to be in conversation with our partners over at Liberty Bank. So welcome, Andrew Plessis, to the Good Morning Show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And David, I'm sorry, David, I didn't welcome you as well. Hi,
Mr.
David.
Buggage, how you doing?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good. Look, we're going to have our conversation. You know, this is Financial Freedom Friday, and based upon that, we try to provide the listening audience with a lot of information that can be provided. And we know that Liberty Bank has been a hallmark in this entire community. How are you guys doing this morning?
Doing well. Excited to talk about small business.
Beautiful day.
Good, good, good. Look, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, financial habits. What are some of the key financial habits that small business owners should adopt to ensure long-term success, and how can Liberty help them with that process?
And you want to take that, or you want me to address that?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and...
Okay, so from my perspective, which at the bank, I am the chief small business underwriter.
Okay.
The biggest thing for a small business as far as ensuring a long-term success, I would say it's two pieces. The first is to have a long-term business plan and to periodically check that business plan and update that business plan. And the most important part of that business plan is to understand that you have to reinvest in your small business.
And when I say reinvest, what I mean is that any small business, let's say you have a contract, and after you finish that contract, or you have an order for, let's say, T-shirts, and you walk away from that with a profit of $20,000 after your expenses. That $20,000 is not there for the small business owner to immediately walk away and purchase a car or a new house or whatever. You have to take some of those funds to reinvest in your business. Let's say 50% of that. Put that back into the business to establish a fund for working capital, to establish a fund in the event of some disaster. That's the biggest challenge that I see with small businesses in our community, is understanding that you have to reinvest in the business. The other large piece is that the success of the small business is built on the back of the owner's credit history. So although you may not have good credit in the beginning, or you may have had some challenges, we should all make that effort to change that and increase your ability to borrow by growing your credit history. And I know for a lot of folks it's a challenge, but I always tell my customers it didn't take you overnight to get bad credit, and it won't be overnight where your credit improves. So it's a long-term strategy of improving your credit by paying your accounts on time, opening up new accounts, and you'll get there. But that's the two biggest pieces that I see that will make small business successful, is reinvesting in the business and ensuring that the primary owner has a good credit profile.
So David.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, and you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I think one of the other things that we, a lot of small businesses don't feel or is important is really maintaining financial statements. You know, and so I think in addition to the thoughts that David just shared, we want to stress that they really have to get in the habit of formalizing their business information through maintaining accurate financial statements, because that's the things that are going to help us determine, you know, the viability and the success of that business as we try and help them grow.
So Ann or David, as a small business owner looking to build credit, like, what advice do you give, and how do we improve in our financial profile as small business owners?
Well, I think
for the individual, it's just being able to pay your accounts that you have currently on time, pay those accounts on time, and then to reestablish some new credit. So folks say, well, I have bad credit, I can't get any new credit. Yeah, that's a challenge. But one way to do that is you can save a small amount, let's say $300, $400, $500, and then you can bring those funds to Liberty Bank, deposit those funds into a savings account, and you can borrow against that. So that loan will be 100% approved. You can borrow against that and then make those payments on time, and then you're establishing a good piece of credit. In addition, wherever you intend to apply for a loan, you want to make sure that you have your deposit accounts there, whether it's personal or the business accounts. So Liberty Bank practices relationship banking. That's what we do. That differentiates us from the larger banks, meaning that when you walk into the bank and apply for a loan, we're not just a credit score bank. We're going to look at the whole picture. We're going to see if you bank with us. We're going to check your deposits, among the other things that we do. So the fact that you have a business account with us or a personal account with us, and let's just say you in your business you're carrying average balances of about $4,000 a month. To Liberty Bank, that makes a difference. It's significant. To a larger bank, that account with just an average balance of $4,000, that's a drop in the bucket, right? But to Liberty Bank and how we view our customers, and that makes a difference in the whole picture of whether we're going to extend credit to you. So there's the idea of establishing new credit and then establishing a deposit relationship with the financial institution. Those are two pieces that will help you along that way of reestablishing your credit history.
And David, and either one of you can chime in on this, but the question I'm going to raise is that cash flow is often a major challenge for small businesses. What strategies can owners use to improve cash flow management? And going from that point on, it's my understanding is that how can you access a quick loan similar to what I understand the product that Liberty has in place now, and that being the Lightning Loan?
I think, and David can chime in, but you're absolutely right. Cash flow in a small business is critical, right? And I think one of the first things a business has to do is truly understand the timing of when their funds are going to come in. If they are invoicing certain types of businesses, they have to understand the timing and compare that to when expenses or bills are due. One of the ways that we've been able to help with cash flow management is through the Lightning Loan or through a small line of credit. And we try and help our customers understand how to use a line of credit when that line of credit is being used for cash flow management. So I think that is another opportunity, to help a business in making sure that money is there when it's time to pay the bills. But I wanted to go back to a point that David made with regards to having your relationships, your deposit relationships with Liberty Bank. The biggest thing about lending, and is risk, right? And the risk takes on many different forms or definitions. If I went to Senator Bishop and said, "Hey, Senator, can you lend me $5,000?" Senator is going to know me, right? We have a relationship and a long-standing relationship. So there's a little the idea of lending me money is less risky because I know who you are. I know your habits, or he knows who I am. That's the same thing with regards to having that deposit relationship and, all of your relationships with your primary bank. When we see how you have maintained your account, when we see that you valued us to put your deposits, to do your business with us prior to asking for a loan, our level of anxiety as it relates to that is lessened because we know we know you. We see your habits through how you handle your account.
So here would be my follow-up question to my initial question about small businesses. So for small business owners who may not have access to traditional banking services, what initial steps would you recommend for managing finances and securing capital?
Well, with any small business, starting a small business, they're usually started by what they call bootstrapping, right? Before you go to a financial institution, you bootstrap. That's your savings, that's friends and family, that's your own personal credit card availability. That may be a home equity line of credit on your personal home. So those are the ways that small business owners, I guess you would say, get started before they are pushed, before the business itself is pushed into the financial system. And that's just basically the way it's done. And I see it all the time where a customer, after 3 or 4 years, and the business is established, the business has revenues, the business has contracts, they'll come into the office and they will apply for a debt consolidation loan to pay off personal debt that they incurred while the business was being started. It happens all the time. It's common. So it's not something that bankers are unaware of. So that is probably the way that most small businesses get started before they enter the banking system. And most small businesses, unless you're a large corporate entity such as Coca-Cola or IBM or one of those companies, the underwriting, the analysis, all of that is going to be driven on the credit history, the credit profile of that majority owner to begin with. So that's why it's important for that majority owner to have a good credit profile. Now, everyone has challenges, and that's part of why Liberty Bank is here, and what we understand, and why we do such a good job of being able to lend to folks that some traditional banks can't. We understand that life happens, right? And folks have challenges, and they work their way through challenges, and so their credit may not be credit score may not be the greatest at this time. But if we can sit down, we can talk about those issues. You can have an explanation of what happened, provide us with a path forward, then we can work through those issues. But to begin with, small business owner, you're less than three years old, it's bootstrapping. You know, you have to figure that out with family, friends, personal credit. Maybe you got an inheritance to start the business, but you just don't walk into a financial institution as a startup and ask for a $50,000 loan.
And David, that kind of goes directly into my next question as it relates to small business owners who seeking funding is often going to be a challenge. How does Liberty Bank's status as a CDFI support underserved communities in getting funding?
So our mission since the beginning, since the bank was started, is to provide capital in underserved areas. And we are mandated by our regulators to provide a certain amount of capital, to approve a certain amount of loans in the service areas around our branches. And believe me, we take that very, very seriously. As the person who manages our consumer and small business lending area, I get calls and have meetings with our compliance team and say monthly and say, Buggage, where we at? What our numbers look like in these areas. So we take that very, very seriously in the loans that we make in our communities. And the way the bank looks at it is very simple. If we make a loan to a small business and help that small business become successful, that small business is then able to hire more employees. That small business is more employees in that community. That small business owner is then able to pay higher salaries to his employees from that community. Those folks are able to provide more for their families that are in that community. So it
David,
all works hand in hand.
I'm sorry.
And Liberty has been doing this for over 50 years in the community. And I think I just saw a stat last night about what the bank did in 2023, and it was $330 million in underserved communities that the bank loaned money in those underserved communities.
David,
so,
David, not to cut you off, but can you explain to our listening audience the term CDFI? What does that term mean?
CDFI is Community Development Financial Institution.
Okay.
And so Community Development Financial Institution, with that organization will receive funds, whether those funds are from the federal government or from private entities or deposits. Once those funds are received, the bank has, by taking those funds in, an obligation to lend those funds in certain areas at certain rates, meaning it does no good, and this is probably the foundation of the bank. It does a small business owner no good to lend him $10,000, but lend that small business owner that $10,000 at a predatory rate. Meaning, if I lend you $10,000 at 25%, that really is not helping you, right? Because the payments are so onerous, they're eventually going to put you out of business. So we take that very serious of providing, this is the key, providing affordable capital. So with the advent of the internet and fintechs, a lot of small businesses, there's money out there for you, but is it affordable capital that you can thrive, that the business can thrive with? And that's what Liberty Bank takes really serious. And as a CDFI, we're mandated is to provide affordable capital in our assessment areas.
We have a caller on line one, Ann and David. Welcome to the Good Morning Show, Lindell.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have to ask you a question. I know that you all are talking about small businesses or whatever, but I have a question. I've been wanting to ask this question, and I thought today would be the appropriate time since representatives of Liberty Bank are on. One question is, let's talk about the everyday guy who's not doing business. And Liberty Bank's presence in the African-American community. I don't see, and perhaps I'm wrong, but my question has always been, with you all being such a staple, and we're founded by African-Americans, Dr. Francis and all, Elder McDonald and all, how come you all have not, the bank, made such an impact where we're talking about financial literacy programs for everyday Joe, we're talking about homeowner, first-time homeowner, first-time home ownership programs. But none of those things I seem to find Liberty Bank really oversaturating us with commercials, billboards, or any of those things. So I'm just curious as to, with us being such a staple, being founded here, having over $2 billion in assets, being in multiple states, we don't have at least our home looking a little bit better than it does. One. Number two, last question. Since you all are leaving, or in my opinion, abandoning New Orleans East with that building out there, pretty much like the building over at the Grand that our president of Liberty Bank, former president, happens to have part ownership on. Are you all going to do anything with that building, or is it going to be abandoned pretty much like the Grand Theater? Those are just my questions. I'll hang up and let you answer. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindell.
You're welcome. This is Ann DePlessis. And let me just address your last question with regards to abandoning the East. I don't know how or where you got the impression that Liberty Bank is abandoning the East. We are not. Liberty Bank's corporate headquarters is 6600 Plaza Drive, and we will remain Liberty Bank's corporate headquarters will be 6600 Plaza Drive. We made an investment in a building for other offices on Tchoupitoulas. Right? We have never said, I don't know if what you got was from an inaccurate depiction in the Times-Picayune, but we know how that happens, right? We know how the media will obscure information. But I want to assure you that we are not leaving New Orleans East. Our corporate headquarters is 6600 Plaza Drive, and it will remain 6600 Plaza Drive. So please make sure that you clearly understand that. Our hallmark, our is here in the East. So, and most of our families, our employees, a lot of our employees live in the East. So I just want to make sure that rumor is squashed. Secondly, we have spent and invested a tremendous amount of money in this community, as well as throughout the communities we serve, supporting our schools, financially supporting our schools, financially supporting home ownership. We have done over the last, 10 years, are so hundreds of millions of dollars in loans across our country and in New Orleans. If you recall, after Katrina, Liberty Bank was the first bank to provide 100% financing, no down payment to our residents so they could get back home. We didn't have money to buy new homes. We didn't have money to buy new furniture. Liberty Bank took the lead in building a campaign saying we are coming back. We don't spend a lot of money on advertising as it relates to TV ads because we'd rather reinvest that money back into people. We'd rather reinvest that money back into our ability to provide better loans and more loans at a reasonable price point, interest rate. As it relates to financial literacy and home ownership, our mortgage department in New Orleans and across the country spend many hours with home ownership counseling and other agencies giving advice, working in the community to provide that financial literacy. We have a wonderful partnership now with Junior Achievement that allows us to help and work with our educators in developing financial literacy curriculum so that they can provide information and the right information to their students. So, unfortunately, we're not going to spend at this moment, and I wish we were $2 billion. Our aspiration will be to be $2 billion, hopefully in the next 5 years. But at this point, we are a $1 billion institution, and we're growing. So unfortunately, I would call us a quiet storm, but an effective and dedicated storm, especially for those who bank with us, especially for those people in our community who need us the most. So we would not have been able to grow to $1 billion strong. We would not be able to have a retention rate of our customer base of over 98% unless we were having an impact in this community. So I understand. Maybe you ought to come and visit with us. I'd be happy to meet with you so that we can give you a whole lot more information on the impact that we're having in this community, the impact we have had in this community over the past 50 years.
Well, we want to thank our partners from Liberty Bank for talking to us today about all things financial freedom. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, David, for your continuous partnership here at WBOK. And thank you to the listening audience for your insightful questions and commentary. But on the other side of the break, we are going to hear from the New Orleans Health Department talking flu season, vaccines, and eternal awareness. Stay with us right here, WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
That's right. It's party time each and every Sunday night at 7 p.m. on WBOK. It's the Throwback Throwdown with DJ Wick as he brings you the best in old school from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the early 2Ks. Plus, the party goes to another level at 9 p.m. with the Throwback Throwdown Party Mix to round out the night. It's the Throwback Throwdown Sunday nights at 7 p.m. on WBOK 1230 a.m. and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. A big shift at NOLA Public Schools as Superintendent Dr. Avis Williams prepares to step down. That announcement came hours after the current superintendent, Dr. Williams, announced she's resigning from the position. Williams, who has only been on the job for a little more than 2 years, will step down in about 2 weeks. This resignation comes as the school board could face a $36 million shortfall due to an accounting error. Williams says her resignation was not because of that, telling WDSU it was a personal decision. Dr. Williams' last day is December 1st. The new leader, Dr. Fatima Fulmore, will take over that same day. The community is coming together to save their school. Neighbors, educators, and supporters of King's School are all rallying to keep its doors open. This after low test scores and dwindling enrollment have the school on the short list for possible closure. The board could make a decision on King Charter Schools as early as its December 10th meeting. And happening this weekend, Inspire NOLA is hosting a special event for families, all for a good time and for some laughs. The event will feature special guest Ricky Smiley, among other New Orleans artists, comedians, and musicians. The event celebrates teachers, first responders, and parents of Inspire NOLA students across the city. The NOLA Love Night of Comedy, Love and Conversation event is tomorrow at 7 p.m. at the Orpheum Theater. I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK.
NOLA Public Schools' main round enrollment for kindergarten through 12th grade is now open. With 73 schools available through the NOLA Public Schools Common Application Process, or NCAP, finding the right school fit for your family is easier than ever. List up to 12 choices to maximize your chances and apply by January 24th. We're all in, and we hope you are too. Apply today at enrollnolaps.com. That's enrollnolaps.com.
Welcome to Chemical of the Month, a service of the community scientist and Rise St. James. This month, we're focusing on lead, a heavy metal that's dense, soft, and poses serious health risks. In Cancer Alley, lead exposure from industrial emissions or contaminated soil can significantly increase cancer risks and other health problems. Stay informed and protect your health. For more information, visit risestjames.org.
This is wellness advocate and host of Change Your Water, Change Your Mind, Pastor David Patan. Every week, I'm educating you on how to be healthier by making simple changes to your diet. So join me every Saturday at 1 p.m. and let's get better together, only on WBOK 1230. What New Orleans is talking about.
Greetings, WBOK family. This is Jason Clark, host of United Way and You. Be sure to tune in next Thursday at 12 p.m. when we'll be speaking with Melanie Richardson, co-founder and executive director of Training Grounds, a United Way funded partner. The topic will be the We Play, We Connect Family Resource Hub. Please tune in if you're able. Until then, we only have one life to live, so live united.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana companies through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about what the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation does, please visit www.jazzandheritage.org.
Hello, I'm Gary Clark. Please tune in to Dr. Clark 101, The Living Classroom, which is broadcasted weekly every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. on WBOK 1230 a.m. on your dial. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 a.m.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 a.m.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am
Good
your
morning.
host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. In studio with me is none other than
Senator Wesley Bishop.
And we'll be in conversation this morning with Benjamin Winger from the New Orleans Health Department and the coordinator for the Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit, accompanied by Taisha Davis, the Resources for Human Development Director, which is a nonprofit contracted with the New Orleans Health Department. But before we jump into conversation with these two community leaders, we want to talk about some Senate bills that are in play right now. There's Senate Bill number 1, which is authored by Senator Jay Morris, a Republican out of West Monroe. The bill passed 30-6 over concerns. Well, there's concerns that from the New Orleans delegation that there's a hidden design to strip criminal cases from liberal judges in Orleans Parish. What this bill is aiming to do, it is a proposed constitutional amendment that would empower legislators to set up a new specialized court in the state if 2/3 of them agree. Senator Gary Carter, a Democrat out of New Orleans, pointedly asked Morris if he was contemplating some sort of criminal court or regional criminal court, to which Morris replied, "I haven't, but that might not be a bad idea." Representative Carter said, "I hear that's what really this is all about." So Senate Bill 1 is trying to strip powers from what they consider to be liberal criminal judges in Orleans Parish, and they want to set up, this guy wants to set up some specialized court to take the power away from the judges here in Orleans Parish. And Senate Bill 2, which is very, very scary, is authored by State Senator Heather Cloud, a Republican from Turkey Creek. Senator, where is Turkey Creek? I have no idea.
Turkey Creek is exactly near the Lafayette area.
Near Lafayette area. Sponsor Senate Bill 2, which is a constitutional amendment that would ultimately allow legislators to more easily add to the list of crimes for which juveniles may be charged. That bill was split along party lines. 28 Republicans are in favor and 9 Democrats were against it. Senate Bill 2 will need no approval from Governor Jeff Landry, meaning they don't need his signature, but it still needs an approval from the House because it calls for a constitutional amendment. So though it doesn't need the governor's signature, it needs approval from the House. But right now it is split along party lines. 28 Republicans are in favor, 9 Democrats are against it. I wanted to make certain we got that in real quickly. Senate Bill 1 and Senate Bill 2 both passed on Monday at the Louisiana Senate. So if you're not aware, please do some research on Senate Bill 1 and Senate Bill 2. And if you know me, you know Senate Bill 2 is the one that I'm focusing heavily on because they're looking for ways to charge more of our children with adult crimes, which will ultimately send them to Angola. So we need to keep our eyes and ears open about what is happening at the Louisiana Senate. But listen, let's pivot real hard to Benjamin Winger and Taisha Davis. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. How you doing?
Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you.
God,
Good morning.
Ms. Davis, let me ask you a question. Serving as the director, can you explain the role of the New Orleans Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit within the city's emergency response system?
Sure. Good morning. The Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit is aspiring to be the 4th branch of emergency services. And when I say aspiring, we're working through the logistics of that. But essentially, we take 911 calls, mental health calls for service. Ideally, those calls nonviolent to get a mobile crisis unit alone. But we also support the other first responders, police, fire, and EMS, in persons suffering from some sort of mental health crisis.
So how does the MCIU integrate with the existing 911 system?
Okay, so we take 911 our OPCD has built out calls that can come straight to a mobile crisis intervention unit. They have to fit a certain criteria. If not, once police are on the scene and they have deemed the scene that could better be served or supported by us, they will call us for service once they're out.
Great. And Mr. Winger, talk to me a little bit about what are the primary goals of MCIU and how these goals differ from traditional emergency response teams like police and EMS.
Well, the primary goals for MCIU, the health department created this program to serve the people with mental health difficulties in the least restrictive possible way. We also another goal is to alleviate other first responders for more appropriate mental health treatment and response. And that's basically the reason why we have the Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit.
Talk to me a little bit about what are some of the challenges that MCIU faces in providing timely and appropriate responses to mental health crises.
Well, first of all, we have an excellent response time of from the time the call is received to the time we get to the scene is about 10 minutes. So we have a rapid response time, and I think Taisha can give us more insight on that.
Challenges is that, like I said, we haven't been, I guess, delegated or deemed as true first responders, but we are certainly acting in that capacity. So a little bit of like access to all the information or access to specifics, logistics that quite necessarily we wouldn't have access to, or communication with other first responders on scene. Some of those can be the barriers. However, we have built out internal processes that allow us to connect with them, respond to them appropriately, and provide those on-scene supports, interventions, and or resources.
So can you walk us through the process when someone calls 911 to report a nonviolent behavioral health crisis? How does the MCIU determine the level of intervention needed?
Okay, so walking us through it, the caller will call 911 as traditionally, ask the questions that 911 asks. Depending on how those questions are answered will determine what response you get. Do you get police? Do you get EMS? Do you get fire? Do you get MCIU? At that moment, if it comes straight to an MCIU call, we use a dispatch first model, which means we dispatch out. We call that person that called in to get that real-time information. What is actually going on with that person at that time? And at that time, we arrive on scene. We do further assessment.
Because the reason I asked that, I heard you say early on that if police are on scene and they determine it to be something more suited for you, then they will call you. So that information isn't gathered with the 911 dispatcher first? Like sometimes police show up first and then you have to be called?
Absolutely. And the reason for that is just dependent on the way those questions are answered.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
if you don't know specifics, it may trigger an unknown response, and that could trigger police.
And you got and the MCIU unit, one of your aims is to reduce the burden on police officers and other first responders in the city of New Orleans?
Yes.
What would you say? You may mention that you aren't necessarily considered to be a first responder. What, if you are considered to then be a first responder, how would that change, I guess, your day-to-day operation, and how might it benefit the citizens of New Orleans?
It would change the day-to-day operation because now we're fully integrated into the system, and then it allows us to have, greater access, greater availability within all the processes within the system, and then it allows us for the citizens of New Orleans, of course, we would capacity-wise, we would be able to take more calls, have access to more information, and be better prepared to serve them.
And with the ongoing, shortage of police officers that's been going on in the city of New Orleans for quite some time now, it then would free them up for other areas and free you guys up to do what you do.
Absolutely.
We're in conversation with Benjamin Winger, the New Orleans Health Department Coordinator for the Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit, and Taisha Davis, Resources for Human Development Director, which is a nonprofit contracted with the New Orleans Health Department. If you want to join the conversation, the number here is 504-582-9422. We're going to go to break, but on the other side of the break, we'll have more with Benjamin and Taisha right here on WBOK 1230 a.m.
What New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
The cooler weather is here. Jackets are needed today as temperatures for the first half of the day are in the 50s and 60s. We'll see mostly sunny skies with afternoon highs near seasonal and the low 70s. Another cool night is ahead. North Shore lows in the 40s, South Shore lows in the 50s. Expect a dry weekend with highs in the mid to upper 70s. Rain arrives next week. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Keep up with NOLA Public Schools through Education Elevation, hosted by Superintendent Dr. Avis Williams. Education Elevation will highlight the achievements, innovations, and contributions of scholars.
Hi, it's Dr. Shepard with your Medical Minute. Let's discuss one harmful ingredient in many hair products, formaldehyde. This colorless gas is a known carcinogen found in hundreds of hair care products disproportionately used by Black women, such as Brazilian blowouts and keratin treatments. It increases the risk of cancers such as uterine, breast, ovarian, and of the upper respiratory tract. It's linked to allergic dermatitis, headaches, asthma, and nervous system disorders. The chemical has many names and derivatives, and even products that do not have formaldehyde may release it, such as methylene glycol or formalin. Risks are increased with long-term exposure. Lawsuits have been filed against prominent companies and manufacturers like L'Oreal, Revlon, Sally Beauty, Soft Sheen, and Avalon. In June, there were 8,170 hair straightener lawsuit filings. The FDA has been considering a ban on formaldehyde, but is consistently pushing back the timeline to reach a decision. You can call the FDA and support the ban or submit a public comment. For more information about safe beauty products, call me at 504-858-4696.
This has been a Medical Minute with Dr. Cassandra Shepard on WBOK 1230 AM.
The way to fix Louisiana's insurance crisis is to fix our homes, make them safer, stronger, and more storm-ready. But Governor Landry wants to make it more expensive to fix your home. His plan adds sales tax to everything from home repairs and maintenance to garbage collection to diapers. The governor's rushing to overhaul Louisiana's tax structure so out-of-state corporations pay less and everyday people pay more. If you think insurance is bad now, tell your lawmakers not to let the governor mess with our taxes. Paid for by the Greater New Orleans Housing Alliance.
Hey everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Brian Banks from the front porch. We're coming up next.
Good morning, Wake Up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 1230 AM.
Welcome back. Good morning, and welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. In studio with me is none other than
State Senator Wesley Bishop.
And we are in conversation with Benjamin Winger, the New Orleans Health Department Coordinator for the Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit, partnered with Taisha Davis, Resources for Human Development Director, which is a nonprofit contracted with the New Orleans Health Department. Listen, we were talking off air, but we want to give a shout out to the St. Mary's. Is that Xavier Prep?
Xavier Prep.
Look, I wanted to get it riled up.
Class of 2002.
Class of 2002 from the Xavier Prep, and Warren Easton is also in the building with Mr. Benjamin Winger. And listen, shout out to Southern University at New Orleans as well, because both people sitting in studio with us have some relationship with Southern University at New Orleans. Some great things come out of New Orleans, y'all. So you want to tell us more about how does the MCIU aim to reduce the burden on police officers and other first responders in New Orleans?
So we aim to reduce the burden by providing those on-scene interventions and supports and doing those warm handoffs when available. Since existence, which we've been in existence since June 1 of 2023, we've been able to consistently provide about 35 to 40% of reducing the calls or the burden on New Orleans Police Department and other first responders.
And if she sounds so informed, it's because she basically grew up in this department. She's been there, 11 years?
Yes.
She started interning there.
Yes, absolutely. I started with RHG back in 2014. That was my place of internship, going through grad school, trying to balance life and work. And so,
now she's the head black woman in charge.
Now, what did you go to grad school?
I went to grad school at the Southern University in New Orleans School of Social
Don't
Work.
get it twisted.
So can you discuss how the MCIU helped to prevent individuals in crisis from being sent to emergency rooms or facing potential criminal charges?
So we aim to reduce that by providing those on-scene interventions and support, being someone that's from the community, knowing the resources available and knowing the presentations of these mental health crises, right? We're able to provide those absolute most appropriate interventions. Don't get me wrong. At times, some people do have to go to the emergency room, but ideally, our goal is to connect them with resources, connect them with providers, reconnect them back with their providers to be able to support them in the best setting.
So, Mr. Benjamin, how do you measure success or impact for the MCIU program? Are there any specific metrics or data points that demonstrate its effectiveness in the community?
Well, to date, MCIU has, since we started June 1st, 2023, we have seen over, MCIU has received over 4,750 calls today.
Wow.
Total mental health calls for the city of New Orleans, whether police answers or not, or MCIU is to date, since we started, over 15,926 calls. So we're taking about 35, as Taisha alluded to, we're taking about 35 to 40% of those calls. That's equates to about 10 calls a day, with 3 units running and a sprint unit with MCIU.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about the volume of calls you guys are handling. That's well, it doesn't shock me because we are we're trauma induced here. And I say induced because a lot of these things can be prevented, but we are, subjected to trauma all the way around the board, whether it's housing, whether it's lack of jobs, poor school systems, it's just trauma, which ultimately presents itself as needing someone of your expertise. So how does the MCIU collaborate with other mental health organizations or community resources to address the needs of individuals in crisis?
So we do what's called a warm handoff. So if there's someone that we intervene with and we provide support interventions to, we do what's called a warm handoff, meaning that we will connect that provider, connect that agency, make those connections for that person. Hey, so-and-so needs to access your services, or so-and-so needs to get reconnected with your services, or we need to make a referral that they can benefit from those services. It just depends. We see all kind of different things when responding to these type of calls, and we use it's not a one-all be-all. We use a specific mindset. Everyone is individual and deal with that case individually.
Tell me this here. How does MCIU work to raise awareness about the availability of your services here in New Orleans?
So we've online, of course, online, social media. We have commercials. We do all kind of outreach and resources, whatever we can do to get into the community, stay in the community, be aware in the community. We do all kind of things.
And might I add that we do have a community advisory board of 9 members that is open to the public. We do have meetings on a quarterly basis, and that community advisory board will be answering to and creating a report for the Quality of Life Committee at City Hall.
We have a call on line 1. Good morning, James. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. You are in conversation with Benjamin Winger and Taisha Davis.
Good morning, young people. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
That wasn't for you, Wesley. I know you old.
Oh, who am I talking to?
James.
I'm just picking about it.
We good, baby. We
James.
good.
I'm one of the frequent callers. I'm a frequent flyer. Look, so I'm very proud of y'all system, and I wanted to ask, do y'all have any trainings or anything that coexists with fire, EMS, and police?
Absolutely. We've built out such great partnership with NOPD every Thursday or every morning where there's recurring in-service with the CIT sergeant. I am there to support, ask questions, provide education and support from a clinical perspective on how we can best, kind of get that information out, get that awareness and availability out to all first responders. So absolutely.
And one more question. What is your protocol for scene safety?
Absolutely. Scene safety is always first. So if we have a don't know, don't go, that is when we lean on our partners. NOPD, we will call them if we're unclear, if we're uncertain, that information that we gather in real time doesn't add up. That is a time where we may choose to step back and call our partners to address that scene safety and maintain it throughout the intervention.
Thank you so much, James.
This is a very needed entity in this city, and you guys are doing an amazing job. Thank you for the info.
Thank you so much, James, for your call. I guess my follow-up question would be, just listening to you talk, is there training that happens for the 911 dispatcher to be able to decide if it's a crisis intervention call or if it's a police intervention call?
So 911 does use an international questions that they use internationally. However, there is training. Again, myself and Sergeant, I have to shout out Sergeant Kiera Isaac of the New Orleans Police Department. We collaborate together daily. So we do provide some sort of crisis intervention training to OPCD 911 operators as well.
Right. Is there anything else that you would like the community to know about the MCIU and its services?
Absolutely. We're here. We're available 24/7, 365, including holidays. We don't shut down. We operate just like other first responders. And if you need us or you know someone in need of mental health services or in some sort of mental health crisis, call 911. We're available.
So, Mr. Winger, is there any parting thoughts you have for our WBOK listening audience or any contact information should someone listening feel like they can benefit from your services?
Yes. The New Orleans Health Department has established a dashboard for the public, and it's at nola.gov/MCIU. You can look at the stats. We are a data-driven program, and we a data-driven performance program. So we are looking at the performance of MCIU and how we can do things better.
Well, thank you. Listen, we want to thank all of our guests. This has been an amazing show. We talked about the abrupt and sudden resignation of the New Orleans Superintendent, Dr. Avis Williams. Thank you to all of our callers, Reverend Verkasner, Reverend Calhoun.
Alicia.
We support you over there in terms of wanting to keep the MLK school in the Ninth Ward for the children of the Ninth Ward. We also want to thank our partners over at Liberty Bank. Ann and David over at Liberty Bank. We want to thank you guys for joining us and for your continued partnership with WBOK. And we also want to thank our in-studio guests right now, Benjamin Winger and Taisha Davis with the New Orleans Health Department and the Mobile Crisis Intervention Unit. Thank you for your expertise and your service on behalf of this community. This is WBOK 1230 AM, and I want you to stay right here. The Front Porch is up next with Graylin and Kimber. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt.
And I am Wesley Bishop.
And super producer Nyra Sanders behind the glass holding it all together. We'll see y'all next week on Monday. See you later.
What New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.